Let me ask you a question. How many times have you laid in bed at night after 70, staring at the ceiling, flooded with worries about your health, your future, or the people you love? You've lived a full life, but suddenly, peace seems farther than ever. Anxiety creeps in quietly, sometimes without reason, and the cruel irony, society rarely talks about it, but today, you'll discover something the majority never will. One of the most transformative realizations a person can have after the age of 70 is understanding that they are not their thoughts. They are the observer of those thoughts. This concept may seem simple, but its power is immense. Most people, especially in later life, have a constant stream of inner dialogue filled with worries, regrets, and fears. Thoughts like, what if I become a burden? What if my health declines further? Or what if I'm alone forever? Can feel overwhelming. The problem is not the existence of these thoughts. It's the mistaken belief that these thoughts define who we are. When someone begins to observe their thoughts rather than identify with them, everything changes. Anxiety loses its grip because it relies on our full emotional involvement to survive. The brain is designed to generate thoughts. It creates thousands each day, and many of them are not true or helpful. They are echoes of past experiences, inherited fears, or distorted assumptions about the future. Neuroscience confirms that the prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and decision-making, can become overwhelmed by the amygdala, the brain's fear center, especially as we age. This often leads to a heightened experience of anxiety in the elderly, but here's the breakthrough. When you step back and observe these thoughts without reacting emotionally, the balance of power shifts. The observer in you, the quiet awareness, takes over. This awareness is not disturbed by chaos. It watches. It notices. It does not fight or run. And when you begin to operate from that space of observation rather than identification, you become mentally free. Thoughts will still arise, but they no longer control you. You begin to say, there's a fearful thought, instead of I am afraid. That one mental shift creates space between you and anxiety. In that space, you find your strength. Seniors who embrace this mindset report feeling more peace, better sleep, and reduced stress. Studies in mindfulness and cognitive neuroscience show that consistent observation of one's thoughts rewires the brain. The fear circuits become less reactive. Emotional resilience grows. You start living each moment with more presence and less panic. The chatter of the mind no longer dictates your mood or your decisions. This practice doesn't require any fancy tools or deep knowledge. It begins with a pause. You breathe, and instead of reacting to your next anxious thought, you simply notice it. Over time, this becomes second nature. The result, a calmer, more centered life, even in the face of uncertainty. Understanding that you are not your thoughts, but the observer of your thoughts is a powerful mental shift. It is a form of self-liberation available to everyone, but only a few ever truly discover it. For those who do, especially after 70, it can mean the difference between a life ruled by fear and a life guided by calm awareness. Even after the age of 70, your brain still has the remarkable ability to change and adapt. This process is known as neuroplasticity, and it is one of the most empowering discoveries in modern neuroscience. Many seniors are told that mental decline is inevitable, that anxiety and emotional instability are just part of aging. But science tells a different story. The brain doesn't simply shut down or freeze with age. It continues to grow and form new neural pathways in response to experience, focus, and repetition. What this means is that if anxiety has become a pattern, it's not permanent. It can be rewired. Your brain can be trained to respond differently to stress, fear, and uncertainty. The process begins with awareness and a decision to direct your mind intentionally. The reason most people don't change, even when they want to, is because they keep thinking and behaving the same way. When the same anxious thoughts repeat, the brain strengthens those pathways. It's like carving a path in the forest by walking the same route every day. Over time, that path becomes clear and automatic. But neuroplasticity says that you can carve a new trail. You can step off the path of worry and walk in a different mental direction. You might not be able to control what thoughts show up, but you can control how you respond to them. And every time you respond differently, even just by observing a thought without reacting, your brain rewires itself. Studies have shown that mindfulness, meditation, breathwork, and simple daily reflection help stimulate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation. As this part of the brain becomes more active, the amygdala, your anxiety center, begins to shrink in power. Seniors who practice daily observation of their thoughts and emotions notice they are less easily triggered. Their sleep improves, their heart rate lowers, they become more present, more in control, and more at peace. This ability to rewire the brain does not require medication or therapy alone. It starts with consistent mental discipline. Choosing to be aware of your internal reactions instead of acting them out. Choosing to notice fear without letting it dictate your day. Choosing to interrupt negative cycles with a breath, a walk, or a quiet moment. Over time, the brain builds new patterns that support calmness, confidence, and clarity. Too often, older adults are told it's too late to change. That is simply not true. In fact, it's never been a better time to reset the way your mind works. You have decades of wisdom, reflection, and life experience behind you. Neuroplasticity is your ally. It's the science that proves your mind is still powerful, still adaptable, still capable of change. Anxiety may have been your companion for years, but it does not have to be your future. You have the ability to retrain your brain and reclaim your peace, starting now. Anxiety feeds on one major fuel source, your attention. Wherever your attention goes, energy flows, and the mind grows more of whatever you focus on. This means that if you constantly focus on what you fear, your health, your future, loneliness, regret, your brain strengthens the networks that create and support anxiety. Over time, those thoughts become automatic. They loop endlessly, creating an emotional prison that feels inescapable. But the good news is, this loop can be broken, and the key lies in understanding the power of attention and consciously choosing where to place it. Your brain is like a garden, and attention is the water. If you water weeds, fearful, negative thoughts, they grow fast. But if you shift that water to seeds of peace, gratitude, and calm observation, something new begins to grow. The anxiety loop is not a life sentence. It's just a habit reinforced by years of paying attention to the wrong things. This is not your fault. It's how the human brain works. The mind is designed to scan for danger. It's a survival mechanism. But after 70, when the dangers are more psychological than physical, this mechanism starts working against us. It makes small problems feel large. It makes uncertainty feel like doom. But what if you stopped feeding those thoughts with your attention? When you observe your mind, when you step back and say, I see that I'm having an anxious thought, but I don't have to follow it, you interrupt the loop. You introduce space between stimulus and response. That space is where freedom begins. It's not about forcing positive thinking or pretending everything is okay. It's about seeing your thoughts for what they are, temporary electrical signals in the brain, not absolute truths. And in that moment, when you notice but don't react, you've taken the first step toward reclaiming your inner peace. Neuroscience backs this completely. Research shows that focused attention can rewire the brain. By simply changing what you consistently pay attention to, you begin building new mental highways. If you regularly shift your focus to the breath, to the present moment, to the beauty around you, your brain starts to calm the regions responsible for anxiety. You weaken the mental circuits that kept you stuck and build ones that support resilience and serenity. Most people, especially in older age, don't realize how much power they still have over their internal world. They believe their thoughts are facts and their emotions are permanent, but the truth is far more hopeful. You are not helpless, you are not broken, you are simply misdirected. Redirect your attention, and you begin to redirect your life. Every time you choose not to follow an anxious thought, you break the loop. Every time you bring your attention back to what's real, what's good, what's present, you grow stronger, and over time, anxiety no longer leads. You do. The reason only 5% of seniors ever discover the powerful truth that ends anxiety is not because it's hidden. It's because it requires courage. Most people, especially in their later years, default to habits that feel safe and familiar, even if those habits are filled with worry, fear, or mental noise. It's easier to keep reacting to every anxious thought, to stay caught in the loop, than to pause, turn inward, and really look at what's going on inside the mind. Why? Because looking inward means facing discomfort. It means letting go of old mental stories we've clung to for decades, and that kind of inner work takes real bravery. After 70, many people begin to feel more vulnerable. Physical strength may decline. Social circles shrink. The unpredictability of health, relationships, and time itself begins to weigh heavier. In that state, the brain naturally seeks control. It wants answers, it wants certainty, but life never provides that. So, the anxious mind creates false scenarios, exaggerated worries, and fear-based what-ifs just to feel a sense of control. And most people follow those thoughts because it feels like doing something. But here's the truth. Real strength doesn't come from controlling life. It comes from understanding that you don't have to react to every fear that shows up in your mind. Very few seniors are willing to sit quietly, breathe deeply, and observe their anxious thoughts without judgment or panic. But those who do are the ones who begin to experience real inner peace. They realize that fear doesn't need to be eliminated. It needs to be understood. They see that they don't need to suppress anxiety, avoid it, or distract themselves from it. Instead, they calmly observe it like a wave, rising, peaking, and passing, and in that moment of observation, they stop feeding the fear with their energy. They become the eye of the storm, untouched by the chaos around them. This mental shift is not dramatic or loud. It's subtle and quiet. It's the courage to sit still instead of escaping, the courage to say, I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. The courage to let go of mental habits that no longer serve peace. And it's the courage to try something new at a time when most people have already decided to stop growing. Most seniors never discover this truth, not because they're not intelligent or capable, but because they never learned how powerful stillness can be. They were taught to fix everything, solve everything, and stay busy, but peace doesn't come from doing more, it comes from being more aware. The 5% who find that truth are not special, they are just courageous enough to be curious. They stop running from anxiety and finally look it in the eye, and what they find there isn't fear, it's freedom. Peace after 70 doesn't come from trying to control everything, it comes from learning how to let go. This is a truth that many overlook because our entire lives we've been taught to fix, manage, plan, and solve. We believe if we just try hard enough, we can eliminate every problem, prevent every disappointment, and avoid every fear. But the reality is, life will always have uncertainty. No matter how careful we are, we cannot control our health completely. We cannot hold on to everyone we love forever, and we cannot predict the future. And yet, the attempt to control all of this is what fuels anxiety the most. It is a trap, a mental habit that makes peace feel impossible. After the age of 70, this need for control can become even more intense. The body begins to slow down, independence may decline, you may experience more loss, more unknowns, and more emotional weight than at any other stage in life. And in response, the mind often tightens its grip. It becomes hyper, focused on what could go wrong. Every ache becomes a possible illness. Every silence becomes a fear of abandonment. And every quiet moment becomes a breeding ground for worry. But the irony is this, The more you try to control your thoughts, your body, or the future, the more anxious you feel. Real peace begins when you stop trying to control everything and start observing it instead. You begin to realize that control is an illusion, but presence is real. You don't need to know what's coming next to feel calm. You need to know how to be with yourself in this moment. When you sit with uncertainty and breathe through it without trying to fix it, something powerful happens. The storm of anxiety starts to calm on its own, not because the problems disappeared, but because your relationship with them changed. This shift doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You still take care of your health. You still show up for the people you love. But you stop believing that peace is only possible once everything is perfect. You begin to understand that calm is a skill. It's a choice. It's a mental posture that says, even if I don't have all the answers, I can still breathe, still trust, still rest. And this is why so few people discover peace late in life, because they keep searching for it in circumstances rather than within themselves. But the truth is, peace was never outside of you. It's always been in the space between your thoughts, in the breath between worries, in the awareness that you are still here, still alive, and still capable of choosing how to respond. You don't need to control the waves. You just need to learn how to float. And that's where peace begins.